channel, Lisa Mona, and as you can see from my fan art today, we are doing Demon Slayer. Now, Demon Slayer throughout the history has been actually pretty popular these days. It's probably one of the best-selling manga to this day. It actually made more money than the comic book, like all of the American comic book industry. And obviously, seen from all the merchandise and movies it has multiple adaptations, even a freaking musical stage play. And as you can see, it's just a very popular anime and manga. But today, I would like to take a deep dive into Demon Slayer and see if it's actually worth the hype. As you can see in the background, actually we'll be drawing some Demon Slayer characters, so enjoy that as well. Alright, segment 1. Praise. As someone who's read all of the Demon Slayer manga, I can say that the story actually is good and has potential. The characters themselves all have their own backstories and motivations and personalities. Obviously, I think their personalities are probably the most significant and memorable thing about the Demon Slayer series. Each character you can kind of dream of how they would interact with another character, and their interactions are usually humorous or fun or just enjoyable to watch. From Goku to Tanjiro. A big example could probably most likely be Zensu and Inosuke. Zensu has a very shy and comedic personality that can be really funny to interact with someone who's like really brazen and aggressive. Inosuke, with their interactions, they can be super funny and fun to watch. And I think that's the main appeal that Demon Slayer has. It's also definitely its morals. So I think we can all say that, kind of like Marvel, it's kind of not doing as well as it used to be in its golden age. And manga heroes are kind of placing that moral high ground right here. Tanjiro is probably the best example, and also My Hero Academia. Both have main characters that have empathy, that are so admirable to look at, and that young boys especially, and also girls, but this is more for more boys, but can look up to and love and relate to. Even I love Tanjiro, I'm not as interested in shonen as, the regular person. This is one of the reasons why Demon Slayer is so iconic. There's even other contributing factors. One is most likely its art style. Now, this is personal opinion, but my standards of art for manga can be a little bit different. For example, my favorite manga is probably Berserk by Kentaro Miura. His art quality is just so high that any other art kind of looks a little bit simpler in comparison. And I look at Demon Slayer's manga art, I actually really do like it. I really do love a lot of its effects on water and fire. I also like the skillful talent of the artist. For example, his patterns on each kimono. I can't imagine drawing that. Don't look at me like that. But to draw that every day for every panel, oh my god. But it doesn't mean it has its faults. It's not seen as much as the anime. It's not as noticeable. But if you look in the manga, you can actually see that the manga, there's always this kind of filler drawings that I will call it. That's my term for it. Where it's pretty clear that the artist is trying to save time by drawing more simplified versions of the characters. I remember close to the arc where they were training for Mizan, when he was training with each of the Hashiras, it was pretty much all just the chibi eyes, where it just looks like he was Charlie Brown training. And I know most of it was for comedic effect, but it kind of made me a little bit out of the hype almost for a second, because I really, this was kind of a serious moment. It's almost at the end, and we have the time where they all look like Charlie Brown, so it's a little bit hard to relate. But overall, I would say the art quality is worth the hype. And it's also, I read other sources, and I think this perfectly encapsulates the art style that he has, which is it's like printing. So when you carve into wood and you print it on the block, that's what it looks like. And I would like to say that that's a definitely great way to describe it. And I actually do wonder if he had a printing of the artist. I'm gonna butcher his name. Koharu Gote. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's Koharu Gote. I'm so sorry I butchered your name, but they are pretty cool in their art style. Now, one thing, I'm going to give them a nickname. I actually just call people by he just as a default accidentally, but so that's what I might say. But Koharu himself, or herself, are actually very kind. I read throughout all the Demon Slayer volumes, and I saw their bonus features. And just looking at the artists as he or she talk about themselves, it's really entertaining to see how much he or she worked for this piece of manga. It's really nice to see all the little pieces of lore that they just thought about and put into little bonus features just to say it. That actually might be a problem later, and that's going to be my criticisms area. But it's just really nice to see how much this mangaka cares about their work and really puts in the work. Even at times where he does mistakes. For example, during a really serious arc in the Store's Miss arc, he actually put an anniversary, a celebration art piece right in the middle of it. And so he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry that broke your immersion." And that was very funny to me, and also really kind, because he really does care about the experience while you're reading the manga. So not just the work itself is high quality, the artist itself, he or she, whoever they are, really does care about the work as well. So it's not like they were completely lazy or trying to break it. Now that doesn't mean this Demon Slayer is perfect though. Now I'll go into the criticisms. So, segment 2. Criticisms. I would definitely say that Demon Slayer has the reputation of being probably the most overhyped anime ever. And I would actually agree with this opinion. I'm not saying that Demon Slayer is not crap. It's not crap. It's a good anime in its own right, especially for people who are just new to anime in general, or shonen, or just a regular story. But with all of the merchandise, obviously winning over other pieces, all of the American comic industry, getting all these movies and all these anime adaptations, it can feel it can feel very underwhelming to watch it and then see how it's not exactly what other people say it is. And I think that's just the curse of getting popular, because of how overly successful the anime is. If you just read the manga after it, you might get a little bit underwhelmed. In fact, I would almost recommend, this is one of the few times where I would actually recommend the anime first over the manga, because just the visuals of the anime is just so good that it almost makes the manga look underwhelming, which is very sad, because I do like the manga. The manga is what started all. But there also, one thing that's also known about Demon Slayer is a little bit about its pacing issues and how it handles certain characters. We can all know that, I think, in the opposite way of the manga industry, the new shonen mangas are cutting themselves short a lot of the time. So they'll usually start ending at 20 volumes at most, and they probably will either start a whole new series that's kind of like a spin-off or something, or more. This is what happening with Demon Slayer. It started to end. It ended at about 23 volumes, which is actually extremely kind of short per se, but it is very much shorter than the usual way a mangaka would end a series. For example, One Piece has been here since, I think, the 2000s and still running, and it just has like over 20 volumes. So that you can see the comparison here. Now this has its advantages and disadvantages, I would say. Ending at 20 volumes means that a person can easily probably buy a whole box set of your series and read it in a few days, a few weeks, and probably be perfectly satisfied with the experience. That is something that Demon Slayer has, and it's actually that reason why it probably got such a wide audience, is because it's probably much more easier accessible for new readers, new anime fans, or even just people who don't even like anime but just trying to look at new story content. It's really easy to get into. Bad news though is that while this might be good for inexperienced anime fans or just like people who are new to anime, this actually is a disadvantage for more veteran readers of manga. People who've been around the long game of manga, who read a bunch of other volumes. I wouldn't say I'm a veteran in anime and manga yet, but I have read a bunch of works, mature works, and sweet and sour works. I can definitely say that Demon Slayers, it can feel like when you're reading Demon Slayer a little bit rushed at the end, especially, and you can almost like tell it with how its arc goes. So to put a timeline on it, like we start with Tanjiro's training arc, then he becomes Demon Slayer, then he gets introduced to Hashira's, and then we get 2 arcs where we focus on just one Hashira's origin story and character. Then we go full speed, and we start getting the Swordsman arc, which is a turning point, but it has 2 Hashira's to show the origin stories, and then the last arc starts to just go full speed. Full speed. And this is the part where I actually disliked a lot. I did not really like the last arc because of how much they have to just push in every character's origin story, every character, the whole backstory of Demon Slayer as a whole. It's not like I hated the content. I loved the content. I actually really liked Muzan's dynamic with the first Demon Slayer. I forgot his name. Sorry. I really like his character though. And even the top demon and the top his partner in crime, that was like the top ranking of the moons. It's basically his like right hand. If you wonder what the top moons are, sorry if you don't read Demon Slayer. It means like it's his right hand man. Kind of like his underlings, but not really. But he's like the top recruit. But anyways, they had the brother dynamic. It was really intriguing to read and eventually watch, hopefully. But it just also felt really shoved in there, and very not like fully built up to the point where I can like say it's worth like hearing about him, because as I almost kind of wish there was actually there is a spin-off of Demon Slayer that focuses on Rengoku, which is really good. I would recommend reading that one as well. But you can almost like see how it just there's so many good concepts, but it feels like the author or he or she had Koharu just try to struggle to paste them in the right points where it can kind of feel satisfying and not disappointing one. But I can kind of relate to Koharu, which is also a lesson that I would kind of give you guys from Demon Slayer, is that kind of put your timeline in beforehand, especially if you're doing like big, long volumes of arcs and stuff like that for shonen or like something style of manga comic. Having like because it seemed like Koharu did know how the story would go. He knew how the story would end, and he knew how it began, and he even had all the character biographies and backstories and personalities. But it seemed like, as with all manga, he didn't play out the ending. And this is actually will kind of give Koharu a little bit slack. If you look into he or she's origin story, They only had add a few more one-shots mangas before they went to Demon Slayer and submitted it. And obviously, they had no idea it would blow up to this proportion. So, the fact that it did get to this point, I can see the pressure, and I can see like almost how overwhelming it will be to be this top manga and then having to end it soon. Especially at 20 volumes, because I think that's what I don't know if he was forced to do 20 volumes or he just was like wanting to work on new projects. Either way, I can see how this pressure could make it like you would see the hindsight of trying to get the characters together. You just have to get out there. So that is one of the criticisms. And there's also criticisms on certain characters as well, how like they don't have enough page time / screen time. One of the biggest characters that gets criticized for their origin stories is probably Nezuko. Now, I love Nezuko. I love how she is. I don't think she's that bad in the manga. I think she I think there's a few things I would change, but I don't think that people really like treat her as like they really slander her in this manga, but I don't really think she's that bad. Probably one of the biggest criticism is she has almost like no thoughts or extra dialogue. At least till the Swordsmith arc. Even that, it's pretty clear that she does not have like she doesn't the manga is not going to go into her mind and see like what she's actually thinking or like what she's thinking about. And I would actually say while people might disagree, I would say that this is not the worst decision ever. It more highlights how Nezuko's loss of humanity is and how she kind of only has primal instincts at this point. And that's the whole point. They're trying to get her back to human, back to thinking, actually thinking for herself, not, as a demon, trying to eat people. But I can definitely see how people who have like other more experienced mangakas, people, or readers, or even just readers who aren't really experienced to Nezuko's situation, would kind of not really be satisfied with Nezuko's character at all. I can definitely see that. And I definitely think, but I can also think that Koharu probably wrote her, because in the manga, even like in the world, she's kind of more of a mascot. So I can kind of realize that she has the role of mascot. She's kind of at the heart of the group. But at the same time, it can feel a little bit sad that she doesn't have more dialogue. But in my opinion, I only mind it. I can see why he did that. He or she did that. Also about Koharu, people also think about like what gender Koharu is. Whoever this person is, they actually made their gender anonymous, or right now they're a crocodile, so that's how they draw themselves, so it's really funny. But we don't know if Koharu actually is a girl or not. From evidence, it suggested she might be, but we don't know for sure. Which is why some people are criticizing about the female characters, thinking that Koharu might be a boy, so that's why. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what gender the author is about and could make the experience better. I personally think he did Koharu handle other characters well, like for example Missouri, or Mystery, sorry with these names, sorry. But Missouri is one of the characters that I really love, and one of the top female characters I really like. She is really loving, she has a really good personality, and also she has an origin story that's actually different from Demon Slayer. So her family weren't killed by demons. She just did it out of the hero work and the fact that she has a unique body type that could only be for her. And if you actually look at her solo manga, because in Rengoku manga, it shows more of her origin story as well. I love that one. It really showed her character and how she's actually probably one of the true female heroes of manga, of how her character works. and that really shows. And I feel like Shinobu, Missouri, they're like one of the top ways to write a female character that you still want with a feminine touch. I think that you should. It's really good characters to follow because they have the disadvantages and advantages, and they also kind of have cool old powers. Because like Shinobu, she has actually a smaller body as frail. He was shorter than the average woman, so like even with Demon Slayer, he has disadvantages. And Missouri actually has a bulky body with super strength. So I really like that dynamic between the two Hashiras because there are two female Hashiras. It's really good at how to show female characters. Although some people still say that they didn't have enough screen time, and is that how they feel? Yeah, that's how they feel. Whatever. Next. But yeah, that's one of the problems of Demon Slayer is that it's overhyped by a lot of things. It's merchandise, it's all its merchandise, popularity, its animation. It can make the actual story feel a little bit overrated, and it's really hard to not say it's overrated. And that's a lot of criticisms that Demon Slayer gets. Now, can we go to segment 3, conclusions. Now, as we get gone through, Demon Slayer has a lot of good things about it. It has a lot going for it, but it also has a lot of disadvantages as well. It's not as good of a story it could be for veteran readers who have read a bunch of other stories, and you can almost read other stories that have similar concepts and find that they're better. And there's also the fact that a lot of pacing is a little bit disjointed. If you read through it all one quick session, if you don't pay attention, you kind of realize that every character you see will have their origin story just pop up. It's not really organic as a lot of other animes could get. And I can see all these criticisms and see that it's really hard for someone to like something overrated. What does this mean about the manga industry? What does it mean about comics? Well, overall, I think that Demon Slayer being one of the most popular animes and manga isn't a bad thing. The story and the author itself were really earnest in their intentions, even though they were unexperienced in a lot of aspects of writing and, even the drawing sometimes. But I think it's better to look at Demon Slayer as a franchise for an inspiration in how you can get it, even with your story. Even if you're not as good as writing as you think you are, if you really are in earnest in your intentions of writing and really earnest in trying to just write a story that you think will be worth telling, I think that you will be good in the audience. You will always, if you have earnest intentions, in just saying the story that you like or really want to tell, there will be an audience for it. I swear to it. Which is why I'm so inspired by Demon Slayer, because this was all written and drawn by one guy, one girl, one author who really just wanted to tell the story about the Demon Slayers, and it just grew into things he's passionate about, and he even had inspiration from one of the big three, Naruto and Bleach, from what I heard. And it really just shows that you could be inspired by him, and the story can start over again where you're inspired by Demon Slayer and write your own story based on that. And overall, I think this shows that there's a good future to have for you if you want to write or draw a story. But you really have to put the work into it. And also, lessons to be learned. You also would preferably have your timeline set in the story. While Koharu did have his ending set, which is the number one rule for writing, his ending and beginning set, he needed to find out the details a little bit. Of course, that always comes with experience. So the more you write more finished stories and franchises, the more experience you have and better pacing it into a satisfying conclusion. Overall, the Demon Slayer franchise is a great way of showing how one creator can get big, fast, and how even though it's overrated, there's still a reason why it got so popular in the first place. This is Lisa Moda, and this is my review for Demon Slayer franchise as a whole. And see you next time.